We are back, and Dr. Omikongo Dibinga is joining me. Okay, Dr. Dibinga, I have not seen you since the outcome of this election. What is on your mind?
Man, well, America, right? It did what it does. It did what it's always done. And what's just really unfortunate is, for so many people who are just so despondent. This is like for people like my daughter, this was her first election. I had to console college students for 3 days straight in terms of university because, the whole thing about what to do, and we've been here before. But Dr. Maya Angelou is just playing in our head. When America shows you who it is, believe them. And what's so problematic, I mean, there's so many problematic things. You just pick one, right? But it's just seeing the outright denial of what happened. The fact that this man ran on whiteness and white manhood, but yet Kamala Harris is blamed for running on identity politics. I've said in many spaces that nobody could have run the campaign that Donald Trump won except a white man. Mark Robinson tried it in North Carolina, gone. Carrie Lake tried it in Arizona, gone. The idea of the twin parents of America was the same-sex marriage, the parentage of two men of racism and misogyny, right? They came together and attacked this woman. And so that's what happened. And, if I'm wrong, how does Donald Trump get it? What other politician talks about, look at my beautiful white skin, right? An Asian politician couldn't do that. A woman couldn't get up there and on the stage and say like, oh, and I love men, I just love them. I'm going to protect. So he put them all together. And as I saw former Senator Claire McCaskill said, Donald Trump knows America better than most of us do. Not us here, but most of us in this country. And so I'm hoping that, and I think also this is a backlash to the quote unquote 2020 summer of racial reckoning with George Floyd. America always has a backlash and diversity fatigue. As Dr. King said, people believe in freedom for us on an installment plan. And we see that people just like, okay, we've done enough. And that's why you saw so many, white folks breaking for Trump. There's racial issues between the Black and Latino community, which is why you saw Latino men breaking for Trump. And lastly, I would just say, Black men and Latino men are not the same. We did not break 55% for Trump. We were as expected. We were number 2 behind Black women. So this idea that Black and Latino men broke for Trump, it just shows how disrespectful people are to what we actually believe in, who we are, and what we do. That's why they just throw out terms like woke and say, oh, the woke mob lost, and and DEI lost, not understanding that DEI for us. I was listening to Joe Scarborough. I was listening to Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, and he was talking about how he was so happy that this PBS documentary on autism is coming out because he has a son who has Asperger's, and he was talking about that experience. And then I'm like, well, DEI inclusion is about that, right? Do you think that, Trump and them are going to have an agenda that includes them? But I'm seeing these guys saying, oh, we're too DEI, we're too woke, and so on and so forth, using terms they don't understand to condemn us. Well, all we're doing is fighting for equality for everybody. But America didn't want it this time around.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've had a couple of interviews since the election, and I did commentary the night of the election, and the way that the questions are asked, and you probably saw that Eddie Glaude and Stephanie Rule on MSNBC, yes, that exchange. The way questions are asked, as they want to focus, and this happened to me last night, as what are the Democrats going to do about messaging? And I had to push back. So, well, first of all, we can get to messaging, but we got a much bigger problem here. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the messaging. There was nothing wrong with the messaging. We talked about the economy. We talked about immigration. We talked about all the issues. But what we don't want to talk about is the issue of race. And whenever we get to that issue, people, they have these convenient ways of talking about everything, deflecting from that. And then having these plausible reasons why the election went the way that it did, like poor messaging, right? Not enough conversations about the economy. I heard somebody say she should have gone on Joe Rogan. So there are all these reasons. And then I had to push back yesterday, too, on this notion that, as you just said, the Black and Latino men, I says, why are we always focus on these voters on the margin and the real issue here with white women and white men?
That's right.
Like, nobody wants to talk about, and I don't know, I've been TV off for me for the whole week. So you let me know if you've seen anybody talk in any substantive way about how white women broke for Donald Trump.
Nope. Not insignificant numbers, not insignificant conversations. Because I've still been watching the news, Areva, and what we saw with that Eddie Glaude video, it's happening again and again and again. People will say something to the effect of, "Yeah, and at some point we do need to talk about the racism and the sexism, but people just couldn't afford eggs right now," and yeah, I'm not excusing what they said, but people just want to be able to take their kids to Disney one day, and so. This is what Dr. King meant in his letter from a Birmingham jail when he basically said that white liberals can be a bigger problem than the white racists we are fighting, because they always want to have a permission structure. They always want to excuse things away. They always want to point away from things that might have them be pointed right back at to themselves. And that's another way that Trump gets over. Because if white liberals don't want to take responsibility for it, and we know damn sure the white conservatives ain't going to take responsibility for it, then he can keep getting away. I think Stephanie Rule said in that interview something to the effect of, "Oh, some of these guys probably didn't see the rally at Madison Square Garden." Are you serious? Like, that was for them and their devices, whatever. That's prime time for them.
So what if they didn't?
Exactly.
They got to see every rally to know
exactly
that Trump is a racist and it's misogynistic. How many times do you need to hear him say and do what he has done? He has a history of it.
Yep. And this idea, if he's authentic and all of this other type of stuff, fine. Authentic, yes. Authentically racist. Just add the rest of it. Authentically misogynist. And it's like I saw Eddie Glaude say in another interview. He said, the problems that we have in America are not only problems that exist in America. What's unique about us is our inability to acknowledge them. After the Civil War, slave masters got reparations. And even Trump's talking about reparations now. Civil rights movement, people got excused from their behavior and they never go away. We're about to have a whole bunch of insurrectionists who are about to be pardoned again. So we never want to confront that, and our ability to point at everything else is why we are here today and why we're about to see this country have to lose another probably 30, 40 years as it relates to the Supreme Court, as it relates to making real change in this country. But unfortunately, too many of us are used to it.
Yeah, the economy argument, and when you unpack that, and I say to people, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about the lowest job rates, that we've seen forever, the lowest Black unemployment rate. Let's talk about all the growth in the stock market. People with, stocks, their portfolios are, performing out the roof, just this massive growth in the economy, the inflation coming down, leveling off, and the issue being price gouging. I said Kamala Harris confronted the issue.
That's right.
It's not the inflation, it's price gouging. Because if it's just inflation, Donald Trump can't do anything about inflation. So when people say they're tired of their eggs being too high, what is Donald Trump going to do for the price of eggs? If he doesn't address the price gouging, which she was the only one out there talking about addressing the price gouging. So when you start to push back on the economy argument and really show folks the facts, then they revert to something else. They say, well, it's immigration. So you just jump all around to avoid the real issue of white supremacy. And then I had someone say to me, well, Latinos. I said, well, wait a minute. First of all, white supremacy is, something that can be adhered to, embraced by non-white people. So it doesn't, you don't have to be white to embrace white supremacy. We all have been inundated with white supremacy narratives all our lives. The narrative that white people are better is told to all of us from day one. So don't tell me just because they're Latino that somehow white supremacy doesn't apply. So that's I know you're a professor, so you deal with a lot of smart kids.
As many people in the Latino community, they're next in line to be white. We have a whole category now, Hispanic white, right? And so we know a lot of Hispanic and people from the community who are activists, who fight with us, who ride with us. But look, this is a country where Germans and Italians and Irish were not considered white at first, and they were allowed to get into whiteness. So many people have fought to get into that as a community, and the Latino group is up next. And so, Roland Martin said, to get into whiteness is basically who can shout the N-word the loudest. And so this idea of many of them, turning on us and not getting along with us, that's been a historic thing. There's a lawsuit in California, I'm sure you're aware of, where Black workers are suing a company for the Latino discrimination they've experienced. And so this idea that we're supposed to be some type of monolith, the Latino community itself is not a monolith. So to just put them in one category, then group us together, and not even understand the male dynamics as it relates to what Trump was running on. It just shows, again, people, these pundits, they don't know us, and they don't care to know us, Areva. So all they do is just say woke needs to go broke. I saw somebody else say, Elise Jordan, for the Democrats to win again, the whole progressive movement needs to die. Like, they don't want to, James Carver, why are people still even talking to him? Like, they pull out their same guys who don't want to take responsibility for the truth of America, because ultimately all of those pundits, they're not going to directly suffer from what's about to happen. Many of them don't have families who might be undocumented.
Yeah, hold that thought, Dr. Debinga, because that's such an important point about who is going to bear the brunt of a Trump administration. And the reality is many of the Latino, poor whites in rural America that voted for him